Let the math begin. Today our focus is going to be ratios, and ratio is simply the relationship between two amounts. And there's three different ways we can show that mathematically. Let's just say we were going to look at the ratio of 3/4, or 3 to 4. It looks like a fraction. But the way we can note that is by a fraction. 3 to 4 and 3 to 4. They all mean the very same thing. They're just written differently. So anytime you see those, even though we're used to saying a fraction, it's really just a ratio. So 3 to 4. So we're going to do a couple ratios, and hopefully this will be painless. If we're going to compare 8 boys and 12 pets, if we're doing 8 to 12, I normally do fraction form because it's easier for me to simplify. We could start and say, well, both of them are even, so I know I could divide by 2. And when I do that, I get 4 over 6. Well, it's still even, so I need to try again. Divide by 2, and I get 2 over 3. So my ratio would be 2 boys to 3 pets. That would be my simplified version. Some of you may have seen from the get-go, well, I could divide both of these by 4. And if you did that, then you would go straight to 2 over 3. You're going to get to the same answer either way. If you do it this way, you just have an extra step. But it doesn't matter to me which way you do it as long as you get to the right answer. Okay? So now let's look at 35 swimmers and 40 floats. So we're going to do 35 over 40, or 35 to 40. And both of those are divisible by 5. So remember, what we do to one, we must do to the other, because we always want to keep it consistent and balanced. So that's going to be 7 and then 8. Now, if you have one of the calculators, I think this is the same kind you use in 6th grade. If you have one of these at home, if we punch this in like a fraction, it would be 35, and then this ABC button means fraction. So ABC, and then you would hit 40 and hit, well, I can't even do it right. 35, ABC, and then 40. I didn't hit the button hard enough, sorry. And then hit equals, and it gives us 7 over 8, which is the same thing we got when we did it by hand. So you can use the calculator, or you can do it by hand. Most of these ratios are not big numbers, so it's not too hard to do it by hand. So if we have 14 soccer fans and 21 football fans, 14 over 21. Well, their common factor is 7. So if we divide both of them by 7, we're going to get 2 over 3. Let's see if I can get these buttons to punch this time. So if we do that on the calculator, 14, and then hit ABC, and then hit your 21, and hit equals, and it'll simplify it for you. Now, on to the next one. 12 hot dogs and 8 hamburgers. Now is when we get a little bit tricky, because these have all been, the big number has been on top and the little number on the bottom. But this time we've got the big number on top. Still divide. You can start with 2 or 4. I'm going to start with 4. And we get 3 over 2. Now the calculator will not give us what we need as a ratio. Let's see what happens when we do this on the calculator. 12, ABC, 8, and hit equals. It gives it to us as a mixed number. I don't know if you can see that. It's 1 and 1/2. Okay? 1 and 1/2 is not considered a ratio. It's a mixed number, but it's not a ratio. A ratio is only 2 numbers compared to each other. So if you get an answer like this on the calculator, the way you could use this number to help us get back to this number. So I don't know if you remember converting these back to fractions. If I hit, but if I put 2 on the bottom, 2 stays on the bottom. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, and that's how we're going to get back to our 3 over 2, which is the same thing we had. So if you use the calculator to help you and the big numbers on top, you're going to have to do some converting when it gets to your answer. Okay, now I got to slide this down. We've got 34 singers and 30 songs. So 34 over 30. The first thing that pops in my mind is a 2. So we're going to get 15 and 17. So 15 over 17. So we know that most of our calculator's not going to work on that one because the big number's on top unless we do some converting. So 34, ABC 30. Our calculator gives us 1 and 2/15. So again, we're going to look at 1 and 2 over 15. So to convert that, 15 stays on the bottom. 15 times 1 is 15, plus 2 is 17. And that's how we can take it back if we need to. Or you could just do it by hand, either way. Now, I jumped right on into some tricky problems. If you notice, all the stuff that we've compared, singers and songs and boys and pets and soccer fans and football fans and hamburgers and hot dogs, they don't really relate to each other in terms of seconds and minutes. In this problem, we can't do 45 seconds and compare that to 2 minutes. We need to compare them on the same unit. So what the easiest thing for me to do is, I know there's 60 seconds in a minute. So this would be like 60 seconds and 60 seconds. So I know that my 2 minutes would become 120 seconds. So now I can do 45 over 120. You can do that by hand, or you can punch it in the calculator, 45, ABC 120, and hit equals. And that will take you to 3 over 8. Now you could have started dividing and gone that route, or go straight to the calculator. This time we've got days and weeks. So if we ask ourselves how many days are in a week, that would be 7 in 1 week. But this asks for 2 weeks, so 7 and 7 gives us 14. So this would become 14 days, because 14 days and 2 weeks are equal, but we want to make it so that both of these units are the same. So now if we look at this ratio, it's going to be 5 over 14, and there's nothing I can do. There's no way to simplify 5 and 14. Alrighty, we're getting into short rows, almost done. 3 months and 1 year. So I know there's 12 months in a year, so this is going to become 12 months. So I'll get 3 over 12. I can divide both of those by 3, and I'm going to come up with 1/4. So 1 to 4. Inches and feet. This one's going to be 3 feet. We've got to ask ourselves how many inches are in 1 foot, and that's going to be 12 inches in 1 foot, and then there's 2 feet, and then there's 3 feet. So this 3 feet is going to become 36 inches. So we've got 28 over 36. So you can either do it by hand or on the calculator. It does not matter. 28, ABC, 36, and hit equals, and that gives us 7 over 9. Okay, so hope that is fairly simple. Now y'all may be thinking, yikes, oh my gracious, a word problem. That looks like a lot of words. But we're going to try to take it bit by bit, and hopefully it won't be too overwhelming. It says the 7th grade class was asked to vote on favorite subjects. From the responses given, 21 people said social studies and 30 people said English language arts. What is the relationship or ratio of social studies to ELA? You've got to be really careful because it says social studies to ELA. So we want social studies on top and ELA on the bottom. So if we look back in our problem, it says 21 people said social studies. So 21 goes on the top, and 30 people said English language arts. So 30 goes on the bottom. And now we would divide both of these by 3, and we get 7 over 10. And that is the smallest we can make that ratio. Now you've got to be careful because some of these word problems are going to get tricky. Let's look at this, basically the same word problem. We still got 7th graders are asked to vote on their favorite subject. 21 people said social studies and 30 people said English language arts. What is the relationship or ratio of, this time it says ELA, to social studies? So we've got to be careful to make sure that we put the right information in the right place. So 21 people said social studies. So this time social studies is on the bottom, so the 21 needs to go on the bottom. And it says English language arts. So English language arts was 30 people, so 30 goes on top. So we still have to divide by 3, and we get 10 to 7, which they're both dealing with a 10 and a 7, but 7 over 10 and 10 to 7 are two different answers. So when you do word problems, be very careful that you're mindful and pay close attention to the exact order that it asks for your response. Alrighty. That wraps it up for today. I'll see you again tomorrow.